Hey there, this is Teal. This is episode 19 of the Bare Essentials, and I'm excited to talk to you about it. Charlie's just going to sleep through it, but that's okay. It's cold here, it's raining outside, and I'm so glad to be inside here in my nice warm office, and I'm talking to you. Jesus was out in a rural area, the Bible says, with thousands of people, and it was getting towards the evening, and the miracle was to feed all these people. And so the Bible says he created food out of a couple of fish and a couple of loaves of bread, fed everybody. And the next day he left, and some people followed him. And they said, "Jesus, where did you go?" And Jesus looks at them and says, "Tell you the truth, the only reason why you're here is because I fed you." You didn't see God moving in the miracle. You weren't really listening to what I said, but you got a free meal. Jesus had compassion on those people because they were out there, it was late, there's no place to get food, they were hungry. He fed them all, and some of them didn't really appreciate it like he had meant it to be appreciated. That his compassion was kind of exploited. You know, when you see hungry people or homeless people, we have so many homeless people. I live near Portland, Oregon, and that's in the news all the time. And you're thinking, I need to help them. Or maybe, well, should we help them? They're just there because they're on drugs. They just go and buy alcohol. They really don't want to work. They just want a handout from the government. If the Democrats get control, they'll just take all our money and give it to the homeless. You know, I hear all kinds of stuff like that. You do too. But for yourself, as a follower of Jesus, forget about politics, forget about things you said. Jesus showed compassion on some people, even when they were exploiting the situation. There was a time when I was a minister in Keys, California. It's Central California. And I was sitting on the steps of this little white stucco church, and this guy comes up to me that wanted a handout, and he says to me, Christians are supposed to be giving handouts to people like me. You're obligated, because you're a Christian, to give me something. I need some money. And I had never heard anybody take that kind of approach towards getting a handout, getting food or money. And then there was this other experience I had. Now I have to tell you, don't do these things just because Teal said to do them, okay? Because you might put yourself in danger or might have something bad happen. This is just me, okay? There was this guy standing up here in Washington, standing on the curb up near Home Depot, and I drove past him, and whenever I see these guys, I always pray, and I say, God, should I stop and help this guy if I can? And on this day, he seemed like God says, yes, Teal, please stop. And so I drove back around the block, came in and parked, and I got out of my truck. I never just hand up money through the window. It says, you know, I'm going to go make a connection with this person if I can. And so I went over to this young man. He's probably in his 30s or so, and he was just sitting there with his little sign, and I introduced myself and began to talk to him, and as I did, I handed him a $20 bill. And usually if you hand a person a $20 bill, you got their attention, and they'll talk to you. Not that I'm doing it for that reason, okay, but it kind of shocks them that somebody gave them a $20 bill, and they're wondering, what's this guy got to say? And so I try to just get acquainted and say, I'm sorry that you're having to be out here in the sun. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry that situations in your life have gotten to the point where you're actually having to do this, because I'm sure you'd rather not have to do that. And I usually end up my conversation after a couple minutes, and I say, well, I really hope that God will direct your path. That's about as religious as I get, unless they want to get more, but that's usually all I say. And I stood up to leave this young man, and he looked up at me, and he says, do you do hugs? And I thought, oh, no one's ever asked me that before. I said, sure, I do hugs. He jumps up off the ground, comes towards me, and puts his arms around me and squeezes me with this big old hug. That really kind of melted my heart when that happened. So many times our compassion has an expectation. You know, if we share something of ourselves with somebody and then they go out and buy drugs, well, you just bought drugs with it, you know, or they're just making a house payment with it, or, you know, I'm hungry, well, you didn't buy food with it, you went out, you know, that kind of thing. We always have an expectation of how our compassion will be received or used. And I look at Jesus, and I don't think he had that kind of limitation on his compassion. There's a verse in Luke that I really like. Luke was writing down some things that Jesus said. And in Luke chapter 6, verse 35, Jesus said, God is kind to evil and ungrateful people. That's what Jesus said in his speech about compassion and doing good. He says, God is kind to evil and ungrateful people. And so I think if I'm patterning my life after Jesus, I'm going to want to show compassion without a connection to how that person ought to receive it. Right? Compassion without how a person ought to receive it. Yeah. That's kind of hard to swallow, isn't it? Because that's not how we normally would look at being compassionate to somebody. If we show compassion to somebody and they don't make an appropriate response, then we get bitter or angry, you know, and say, how dare you take advantage of me? We take advantage of God all the time when he shows compassion to us. And I think we should follow his example. Okay, well, that's all we have time for today. And I hope you have a wonderful week. If you want to write, you can. I'm not out looking for donations. I have no books to sell. And I'm hoping that this video is an encouragement to disillusioned disciples, and maybe a point of encouragement for you if you're just wondering what this Jesus stuff is all about. All right, have a great day.